We are back with you live once again for another Johnny Torch live broadcast. This week in comic book television, the penultimate episode, so to speak, of the season's This Week in Comic Book Television. Again, we are going to have a final show. Jury's still out if I'm bringing back this concept next season. As I said, I didn't get a whole lot of views with this series, but we're going to do another show next week where we cap off the Supergirl series. There's going to be the season finale of Supergirl next week. And we're probably going to do a rundown. I think I'm going to do it like top 10 style, ranking all the series that we've reviewed this season. This week we got the finale of Legion. The only one that's still on the table is Cloak and Dagger. To be totally honest with you, I don't think I'd have anything to say about it on a weekly basis. We'll get to that when we review this week's episode. But as of now, we are going to deal with this week's episode of Supergirl. That is our first order of business. First of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a faithful viewer and or listener. This is kind of done in the podcast fashion. But yeah, every Saturday we do a show. We talk about all the comic book shows in the past week, at least the ones I can watch, which is a pretty large, it's been a pretty large cornucopia of shows that I've been dealing with this whole past season, this past television season, which is why I think I'm going to have to rethink doing this next season. We don't have any Netflix shows involved. And unlike last season, we dropped Archie, what's it called, Riverdale. Couldn't keep up with it, and it was the show I enjoyed the least, so had to drop something, so we dropped that. But we did all the other shows, all the other CW shows. We did Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We did Legion. We also did MacGyver for the most part, even though it's not a comic book show because I watch it. I did the first half of the season, and then the last half of the season I fell back on it, and I had to catch up. So we will talk about the season finale of MacGyver next week when we do our season finale wrap-ups. All right, but first off, we've got Supergirl here, and this was an interesting development. They decided to bring Alora to Earth, and she's got her own, very own little cute Superwoman outfit. This is going to be interesting to see what they do with her here on Earth. I guess she's going to have powers like Kara and do some feats of heroism, apparently. We'll find out probably next week. And I should really save it for the Torch News Roundup, but apparently Jeremy Jordan is not going to be a regular next season. He is still going to be on the show, so to speak, but he's going to be in recurring status, recurring character status, which is very disappointing to me because I really like Jeremy Jordan. He's one of my favorite actors in the Arrowverse. He's one of my favorite characters, Windshot Jr. Disappointing that he's apparently taking a seat back because my criticism this season is that we didn't see more of Winn. He's always taken a back seat, and Felicity is always front and center. She's the techie, they always need a techie on the show. And Cisco, of course, also great character and is front and center of most of the episodes of The Flash. Why has Winn been sort of playing second fiddle and just doing, cameo appearances all season? It's disappointing. It really is. And now that he's reduced to recurring status, it's even more disappointing because hopefully, this is something of his choosing, I guess, because, he's, a stage singer and actor more, that's in his past. I don't know if that is something that was played upon this decision. Again, something I really should have talked about in the news roundup, but because it just made the news today, it's really at the forefront of my mind, and it's very disappointing to me. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you want to see Winn get more screen time? Because as it is, he still hasn't gotten to meet, I don't remember him being in the episodes with Felicity and Cisco and, in the crossovers. I think he doesn't really play a very big role in those. But yeah, so we got Supergirl taking on the Kryptonian witch trio. At least that's what I'm calling them. They really do look like witches. And Angelique J, I guess is her name. I remember her from the Robin Hood TV series. Her notwithstanding, the other two Kryptonian witches are hideous. So they have a alliance with Corvell, I guess. Corvell takes the Black Rock or whatever and sort of summons the spirit of rain back from the earth. And apparently he gets blasted by them for his troubles. Um, they do that line, we have powers beyond reason here, which was a nice throwback to Superman 2. Of course, they're not afraid to do that, which is cool. Meanwhile, Kara and Mon-El and Alora are on Argo, and they try to track Selena, who is the main witch there. There's an explosion when Selena's hologram. It's a setup, basically. Meanwhile, on Earth, Sam is still weak, and Ruby has the idea that the sun might heal her, and so they try to do something with that. Wynn, in the meantime, is also making a shield, which is sort of like a personal body shield, which will come into play later on in the episode. Alex is still trying to adopt, which I am terrified is going to come into play next season. That is probably going to be the full, storyline for Alex all next season is trying to adopt. I mean, it's good that they do it in the way they did here, where it was just like literally 9-second subplot. But I don't really want to see, the personal lives of these guys should not really be dominating the screen time. You know what I mean? This is not a soap opera. This is not John's Other Wife. You got to go back to the 30s, brother, to figure out what that's all about. But, because we don't find out much about Wynn's personal life. I'm still curious what happened with the alien chick he was dating. They just unceremoniously, bounced her from the show. And that's fine. Like I said, I don't really care about their personal lives so much as, give us a reason. Don't just like have her not show up and then just pretend. Maybe they had a throwaway line that I missed in the beginning of the season. I don't know. So meanwhile, we have Jean's dad is leaving Earth. Apparently, I don't know where he's going, to like an old age home on Mars. I don't know. It's a well acted scene by Alex, the actress whose name I'm forgetting right now. But she's come a long way. I want to give mad props to Alex because I wasn't very impressed with her acting in the first season. I remember complaining about it quite vocally, saying that she was not very good in the emotional scenes. But she has come a long way, brother. She had me tearing up, and that's saying something. But she's doing really good, so I'm proud of her. Let's see. So Jean and his dad are going to do the mind meld, the Vulcan mind, the Martian mind meld, which is to sort of preserve his memory, his mind, I suppose, in some respect. Kara goes to her dad's lab to find the answers they need about how to transport to Earth because they took her ship. The Selena took her ship, so she's stranded on Argo. They send a holograph via the holograph of Alora that's in the DEO, and she contacts Wynn through the holograph. That was pretty funny, especially when he's going, Alex. That was pretty funny. But I'm glad they utilized some kind of technology that was already there. You know what I mean? They didn't sort of Mickey Mouse it. They used something that was really there that should have made sense. There's a Streaky reference, of course. That was always a cool nod whenever they mentioned Streaky. I still wish Streaky was in this. I mean, even if they didn't make him or her, what is Streaky anyway? I don't know. I guess it's a him. Even if they didn't make Streaky like superpowered, I kind of wish she had a cat now instead of talking about a cat that probably, had passed on for several years at this point. All right, so they tell Wynn that they need to make a transporter, and it's going to be a one-way trip. So the interesting thing about this is, as I said, they bring Alora along. And apparently she's going to be stranded on Earth now, which is kind of that's kind of unusual, especially since I would imagine she has to go back to take care of her, her people. She's sort of a leader there, even though I guess it's a council that leads them. One of the things I didn't like here is Alora's talking to Kara about Mon-El, and we still have Mon-El still kind of talking to Win, and everybody seems to keep treating this like he's still on the table. I don't think so. I think by all standards of morality, he's still married. I don't want to see Supergirl become the other woman. I'm holding up air quotations right here because you can't see, but other woman. Uh, I wish they would try to back off on this a little bit, but they have the shippers that I guess they are pandering to because the CW has mad love for the shippers. They will appease them with anything. They will they will make Mon-El mistreat his only child in order to appease the shippers. As far as we know, he doesn't have any children. But yeah, so I wish they would put an end to that. I don't know if they're going to bring Mon-El back next season, but unless I don't know, unless they figure something out here, it's really something that is going to hamper their series next season. I just prefer that he leave at this point because they made their bed, they made him married in the future. You can't go back on that and just sort of say, well, things aren't working out because it doesn't make him look very good. It doesn't make Kara look very good that she takes him back after all that. And then he's got a super hot wife that's being neglected. So it's just bad. It's just bad. All right. So the three witches attack the DEO. Wynn uses the shield to save him. He gives the shield thingy to one of the other agents, which basically is a red shirt. I kind of felt all along. I think we might have seen him in an earlier episode. It's one of those things where he kind of looked familiar to me, but so the red shirt gets killed. Meanwhile, Alex takes them on with kryptonite-laced weapons, of course. The trio try to trick one of the witches to beam them to Earth by hitting the keypad or whatever. So that's how they get back to Earth. Rain is brought back. She gets stronger as Sam gets weaker. They are two separate entities now. Jimmy tries to console Wynn about the red shirt death, which was, I guess kind of nice. I don't know. I guess that's what's setting up this departure of Wynn, maybe. He's feeling responsible and so on and so forth. Allura meets Alex, which I thought was really nicely handled. They could have, I imagine they will find time to really have them interact, but just having them meet was nice because, that was basically her family meeting her family. So at the end of it, we have Sam gets shocked back into the dark zone in order to try to, I don't know, get things going here. I don't know. But rain ends up causing tremors. And again, another callback to like Superman, the motion picture, or Superman, the movie, I guess. That wasn't called the motion picture. But, that's what's going to be the big catastrophe stroke. Meanwhile, Martian Manhunter and his dad come back from the mind meld, and his dad kind of wants to go on a suicide mission, which apparently is probably going to be the way he's going to go out. He's going to go out heroically. I guess he got all the info he needed from him. But then again, I guess not, because doesn't that leave his mind completely empty and void or something? I don't know. I am going to give this one. This is tough for me because I'm going to give this one 4 stars out of 5. It's sort of the setup, so I don't know if I can give it that full 5 star. It really is a setup for what next week's going to be. If next week is good for the finale, this episode will have helped facilitate that. But for now, I'm going to say this one is a 4 star out of 5 episode. So that is Supergirl for this weekend. Tune in next week. Next Saturday, we are going to do the conclusion of This Week in Comic Book TV for this season. I don't know, maybe I could do that earlier in the week. Well, anyway, it's coming up next week. So 4 stars out of 5 for Supergirl. All right, next up, let's take on Cloak and Dagger next. As I said, I'm not going to be reviewing this one on a weekly basis anymore, but I will give a wrap-up video probably at the end. Whoa, what just happened there? Okay, are we still live? Yes, we are. Just for full disclosure, my laptop is acting extremely erratic. It's, I don't know, crashing on me at a ridiculous level. So if it does in fact go down during the broadcast, you'll have to bear with me while I rejigger it or what have you. I'm trying to find my notes. That's what happened when the big crash happened. Okay, my notes are back up, and as I said, we're gonna do a video to pretty much review the whole season of Cloak and Dagger when it's over. I don't know when it's gonna be over. I think it's probably gonna be like a 10-episode season or a 13-episode season. So I don't think this is gonna be like, you know, a full season of 22 episodes or something like the other CW shows. All right, so let's see. This week, the last week was a two-part. I mean, it was a double episode. So this week we pick up with episode 3, even though, you know, that wasn't really a movie. It was technically 2 episodes strung together. So where we left off, Tandy reacts from the car crash. She, I don't know if she sees the bullet or if it was the actual bullet going through the windshield or whatever, but she crashes the car. Tyrone is there with the gun still, which, yeah, it must have been the real gunshot, because I believe he said something like he sort of got transported, which he wasn't wearing a cape, I don't think. I thought the cloak was what transports him. Or, you know, again, use a big word, that facilitates the transportation. But anyhow, again, this has been one of my criticisms. I don't mind a patient buildup to get everybody together and, you know, the Avengers thing where you got to get everybody's solo film out of the way before they meet up and stuff like that. I understand. You got to do the buildup. You can't just, but I feel like we've already had enough buildup at this point. I feel like we know enough about Tyrone and Tandy from the first, I'll be generous to say the first 2 episodes. You could arguably say the first episode, but I'll say the first 2 episodes was enough that we can start getting them back together. And I mean, not back really, but getting them together in the same sphere to have them become a team at this point. Now, one of the problems, as I said on Twitter, if you're checking out my Twitter page, link is in the description below. I also said there is a lack of a good villain in this. We really don't know who the villain is. Tyrone's got the vendetta against the cop that killed his brother. It was an accidental killing of his brother, but then again, this cop does seem to be corrupt. And it's probably, you know, self-preservation that made him this way, this cop, because he just covered up the fact that he accidentally killed the kid. So again, that makes him a bad guy, but there's extenuating circumstances. And this, you know, and of course, in Tandy's side, we've got the guy that physically assaulted her or tried to, so to speak. He's in the episode too, and is he going to be an ongoing villain? I don't know. That's kind of not what I was expecting in a superhero saga. It would be to have a attempted rapist be a, you know, ongoing villain. Roxxon is, of course, in the background. I don't know exactly what that means to them, because Roxxon, I don't think, created their powers. Or if it did, it wasn't a conscious decision by one person. So I don't really know where they're going with any of this. Tandy says, "I hope I never see you again," which, of course, is irony. We love irony. So apparently this nameless policewoman that was in the last episode is now called Detective O'Reilly, which, by some extreme bit of irony itself, is the name of one of my characters in The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon. He's Officer O'Reilly, though he's not Detective O'Reilly, but he's affectionately known as Chubby. So Detective O'Reilly grills the guy that Tandy stabbed. He says that he was just mugged or something, and he was drunk and doesn't remember really what happened, but she's not buying it, because most people who are mugged don't wear their pants at half-mast. Tandy goes back to her mom's home, which of course is not the greatest idea. It's not an ideal home life apparently there, but her mom still covers for her with the cops because O'Reilly's tracking her down. She tells her to get in contact with her because she knows Tandy is the victim. Tandy boogies on out, and later on here has a weird vision while she's on the bus about a young Ty, and she sees him with his brother and, you know, hood life, thug life, gangsta. Meanwhile, Ty prays for guidance from his dead brother, Not from God, mind you, but from his dead brother. It's kind of interesting because I thought he was going to be sort of a religious person, but he is kind of, I don't know, his belief system here seems to be kind of skewed. I don't know really what to think of it. His kind of girlfriend walks in on him. I don't remember her name, but she invites him to do the voodoo tour, that voodoo hoodoo that you do so well. She later gives him a voodoo bath. Don't ask. And in this state, he ends up seeing a young Tandy, and I don't know. They cut back and forth. Tandy sees Ty and his brother, and then she sees Tyrone killing the cop, like in 2 or 3 different versions of it. And then she gives him a dagger, which becomes handcuffs. That was the only thing that I kind of was impressed by, because I was like, that's curious. That's interesting, because they're supposed to be like the light and dark. That's why I was kind of surprised that they made Tandy's life so dark in this show, because I thought she was like the child of privilege that kind of has the rude awakening, but they kind of twist that around here and make it Tyrone that has that. Anyhow, meanwhile, Tyrone sees young Tandy, and apparently, as we see in this picture here, she's mature, but she sees her father apparently getting killed. I don't know what was happening. He was getting waterboarded or something. I don't know. They both wake up from this weird vision, apparently knowing something a little bit more about the other. Now, how did this vision happen? I don't know. We're kind of left in the dark about that. I don't know exactly how that works, knowing their powers, but they both seem to have the powers to see each other's or other people's hopes and despairs or whatever. So I think they both feel at this point there's a connection between them, so hopefully they will actually get together by next episode. Meanwhile, the corrupt cop there, I don't remember his name, tells O'Reilly that the case is closed, and Tandy calls her for help, and she ends up telling her side of the story, and she doesn't get in trouble. Then the DVR cut out on me, so I'm not sure exactly if there was some kind of a big hook, a big cliffhanger. I don't really know. So if I'm missing something, let me know. That's what happens with DVR. It's a pain. What's even worse than DVR is waiting for on demand, because I had to actually go to the FX website in order to watch FX Legion this week, because I forgot to DVR it. And that's a pain, because they only give you like one free viewing or something, which is BS, bologna sandwiches. They should give it to you for free for the first couple of weeks it's been out or something anyway. But anyway, to put a cap on this, again, I don't know. I wasn't thoroughly engaged in this episode, so I've got to give it a little bit of a lower one. Kind of felt like we're sort of grinding the gears, so to speak, while we're waiting to get some traction. I'm going to say 3 stars out of 5. 3 stars out of 5 for this week's Cloak and Dagger. I actually had high hopes for this series, because I remember it being a cool concept. I mean, they got cool powers. And they got cool visuals. If they give Tyrone the cloak, that, of course, is like 90% of it. And then, of course, Tandy with the cotton white jumpsuit and the gold ring around her eye. That was a great looking image too. But this is what we're gonna get. To be totally honest with you, this is what we're gonna get. We're gonna get, teen angst drama and Dawson's Creek, but with a Marvel flair. All right, so let us move on now to the aforementioned Legion. We're gonna wrap up the season of Legion, the 2nd season. And I've been complaining about Legion all season long. It hasn't been very good, if you ask me. But I will give props to this episode. This was a very good episode, and I am giving this episode of the week. Arguably that's not a big feat when you only got 2 other opponents for the title, but this was a pretty cool episode. So this kind of felt like what Legion was in the 1st season. They brought back that feeling of the 1st season, which was pretty good. I wasn't really sold hardcore on this show, in the 1st season, because I kind of felt like there was a little too much, gobbledygook. But they kind of changed that a little bit this season, and I don't know. I really don't know what to think about the season as a whole. As I said a couple of times before, I think if they really distilled this down to the bare essentials in storytelling. You'd only have about four or five episodes. You could have cut the show in half, really, and just dropped. Literally, you could have dropped 3 solid episodes. There was 3 solid episodes that made absolutely no sense and did nothing to move the plot. Also, you could have taken 3 other episodes, combined them, or so to speak, and come out with a better story. Or you could have done what I was thinking in this episode, which is this episode felt like they were trying to rush to meet the climax. They were trying to wrap up the season when you really could have stretched this episode out over 2 or maybe 3 episodes, and it probably would have felt like there were less fat in the season if you had some substantive meat in the show during the season instead of just throwing it in at the end and trying to gorge yourself with a plot heavy episode. All right, so it starts really cool. Like last season, we have some animation come in. David and Shadow King is battling while they're singing Behind Blue Eyes from The Who. David, of course, singing lead on that mostly. And they have an animated battle where they're turning into all kinds of things. Guys with swords and guys with tanks and really cool visuals. And they're floating over the earth. And it's really, really cool. That's what I wanted to see in Legion this year. I think they wanted to tamp down on that a little bit because they didn't want the they didn't want the budget to be completely out of control doing this kind of stuff. That's why they kind of wait till the end of the season all the time to do this kind of stuff. And I understand that. I'm sympathetic with that. But when you get to the point where David has his powers, you have to kind of, you're going to have to up the budget a little bit for the power displays and stuff like that. So he gets like webbed up from Farouk's spider, which was pretty cool. And Lenny ends up saving the day by shooting the tuning fork, which, I don't know, it kind of just, tumbles onto the scene, which was, I don't remember exactly how we left it last week, but so she shoots the tuning fork, and that kind of breaks the images and gives David a chance to pound Farouk with a stone on his head, which is a little disconcerting. But anyway, then we flash forward 3 years later, it says. 3 years later, much like Han Solo in Solo, the narrative jumps 3 years in the future, where Oliver and Melanie are living in an ice cube. Yes, that's where he spent most of his years, wasn't it? They say their bodies are elsewhere, and they're kind of forgetting what's going on in the outside world. Apparently, they put themselves here to protect themselves from what's going on in the outside world. They mention it's sad what happened to Sid, and David turned evil. And I like that. I like that kind of stuff when you have to kind of find out, well, what happened? They're telling us something that we didn't see yet. And then we flash back. David still beating the living crap out of Shadow King. Sid interrupts him, and she pulls a gun on him, as we see in this picture. To me, this seemed like it was coming out of nowhere. I know last episode we saw Farouk in the guise of Melanie giving her a tour of David's psychosis and stuff, but I don't know, it really feels to me like, why does she believe Farouk? I think basically this conversation they have at this point is she's basically convincing herself that he's got all this darkness inside him, that he's done terrible things in the past, and where before this she kind of blamed everybody else for it, now she kind of blames him and is trying to say that he's responsible for the darkness and stuff. It's not that Shadow King did stuff to him. It's not that he was mistreated as a youngster or whatever. It's more that he's just got this crazy nature. And I don't really know that I buy that Sid would do that or say that. I don't know. That's the thing that I mean when I say that they probably should have stretched this out over a couple episodes, and it wouldn't feel quite so contrived, because if you see this storyline properly, it is a really good storyline. Because when you have the person you love the most turn against you like that, and when you are in the position where you feel you need to be the one that turns against the person you love the most, that should have a little bit more weight behind it than we had. That should like be a stronger buildup before we get to what we got here. All right, Sid is so cute, by the way. I gotta say this is the last time probably, but I'll say it again. So, and she says he tortured Oliver. He's a killer, and he kind of likes when he does these things. That's the scary thing. You could see the glee in his eyes. So, she's not wrong, I guess, in a sense, but you kind of would think that she would try harder to see it from his point of view. I don't know. So she ends up telling him flat out that she knows that Farouk ends up showing her what happens, that Sid from the future was trying to get Farouk saved so that he could kill David, which is what she ends up telling David finally. And David really, as I said, he seems like such a rube because he doesn't know any of this. He just loves Sid so much that he is believing whatever Sid says in the future. Sid in the future is the one's deceiving him because she's not telling him that he's going to save Farouk in order for Farouk to kill him. So that's what I mean, where it doesn't really feel that genuine because, and we'll get to this by the end of the episode, but they want to preemptively kill him so he doesn't destroy the world. And we don't really have any basis for understanding why he's going to destroy the world or why they think this, or, they have no proof. It just seems like Sid says it in the future. They got to accept that because we know David's a little off. We know that he's a little strange. So it must be true. But that's kind of strange. It's the old adage, like, would you go back in time and kill Hitler, even though he didn't do anything wrong yet, because you know what he's going to do. That's like, a difficult quandary to find yourself in, but it doesn't seem to me like his friends are even giving him the rarest benefit of the doubt. Therefore, it's becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. And we'll get to that in a moment, because that was one of the things I really liked about this episode too, where it's another one of those situations where everybody wants to prevent the bad thing from happening, but what they do to prevent the bad thing from happening is exactly what's going to cause the bad thing to happen. We see that with David in a moment here. So Sid actually shoots him. She actually pulls the trigger, which is another thing. I knew she would do it because I think she has it in her to do that. But, that's telling. That's very telling. She's not going to fool around with this. She is going to shoot him herself. Now, he wakes up in a room with sort of, I guess, what is supposed to be his version of the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other. It's two different versions of himself. I thought this was pretty cool, but again, this is going to tie back to the schizophrenia stuff, which is stuff that I honestly didn't like in the first season. I didn't really like the idea of, I just like the idea that he had powers, but they're trying to reinforce the idea that not only did he have powers that made him think he was mentally ill, but he's mentally ill on top of having the powers. Sid comes out and actually says that later on. So he wakes up in a room with his weird self, and they're watching the PSAs that we were subject to all season. The first one anyway, about the egg or something. So he ends up arguing with himself, and I guess the good David, so to speak, is the like sort of pragmatic. He's basically telling him that you have to let go of Sid. You have to take care of yourself because she's going to endanger you. Then the other version of himself, which I guess is sort of the bad version of him, is basically, he's bad because he's telling him not to believe in God and, all this stuff about how not to believe Sid and how she's no good and stuff. It's kind of hard to argue with their verbal abuse when she did just try to shoot him. So that's what's kind of the sad thing here. That's what I mean, how she's sort of pushing him further and further away by these actions rather than saving him. All right, so meanwhile, Lenny actually is the one that shot the bullet that Sid tried to shoot David with, and the force knocks them both backwards. and knocks them unconscious. And during this unconsciousness, that's where David has this mental vision, so to speak. Lenny ends up getting surrounded by Admiral Fukuhama, and Carrie puts a forehead collar on Farouk to nullify his powers, and they both get carted off by Admiral Fukuhama. Now, David wakes up before Sid, and the other two Davids in his mind basically tell him to agree to some plan, some course of action. I don't know exactly if they. I don't think he really went along with whatever they were suggesting, but he ends up making Sid forget. Now, this ain't exactly like a Superman style kiss of forgetfulness to spare her. This is basically so that he doesn't have to deal with the fact that she now believes that he's dangerous, because she believes what Farouk did, what Farouk showed her. Now, the problem I have with this is, on the surface, why should we trust anything Farouk says? Now, it feels to me like Farouk is the one that, because he's a master manipulator, he's playing Sid the way he would try to play anybody, but he manages to convince Sid that he's right. And I kind of don't understand why she would think that, but in a sense, I think David might have been doing the right thing by trying to take that seed of manipulation away from her. Of course, what he does later on is kind of gross and skeevy, but we'll get to that in a second. But so is he wrong for making her forget that Farouk said that David was the greatest danger? I don't know that I think he did wrong by that. This kind of leaves her in a disoriented kind of mental state. And the voices start arguing with him again. And she kind of wants to be alone, but he comes to her in an astral projection. Now, this is something that I don't really understand. How can he kiss her as an astral projection? Isn't that kind of Doctor Strange type stuff where you come out of the physical body and you're just a ghost, basically? So I don't know how that whole romance went on, but anyhow, so they have a little romance, and he asks her to run away with him after Farouk's trial. And then he goes to confront Farouk, and he tells Farouk that even if he doesn't get the death penalty, he'll kill him anyway. And Farouk tells him that he's going to fail to keep Sid, and that Sid will end up hating him for what he's done by taking her memories away of, what Farouk was trying to do to her. And like I said, it seems that we have to take it on face value that Farouk is telling the truth or is right in this whole sad affair. Now, Carrie finds out what David did to Sid, and that kind of spirals the whole situation out of control. He sees the footage of him doing the Vulcan mind meld on her. Now, Farouk's collar shorts out momentarily, allowing him to send command to a mouse. And he sends the mouse to Sid's ear while she's sleeping, and apparently, reawakens her memories in this case. Now it's the Shadow King's trial, and David comes in because apparently he's got to testify and stuff, but they trap him in a bubble in the courtroom, and Farouk is set free. And again, this is very crazy. This is very bizarre why they are treating him like this. And I think, in a way, as I said, I find it kind of disingenuous, because it feels like they're trying to set up some sympathy for Farouk, and I don't see it. I don't see why we should sympathize with him or believe what he says. I don't understand it. But they believe him. And Admiral Fukuhama and his robot weird chicks there, they say there's a 98% chance of David committing the future crimes that they accuse him of being the destroyer of the world or something. And the others come back to him in the courtroom while he's trying to make sense of what Sid and Carrie and Clark and all of them are trying to do to him. And they basically tell him to, cut loose. Don't even bother trying to, you know, trying to make peace with these so-called friends of his. So basically what they tell him is that they want him back in the psych ward, all drugged up and controllable, or they'll kill him. And obviously that's not a great choice. Having been freed from that kind of life, he doesn't want to go back to it. And the only other option is to get the death penalty. So that's pretty strange. So, of course, David ends up breaking out and he escapes with Lenny. Oh, that reminds me, I don't think I marked this down in the notes, but he goes to Lenny right after he makes Sid forget. And he says something like, God's got plans for you. And she says something like she doesn't believe in God or whatever. But apparently he was talking about himself. So before this whole thing really gets out of control, you could see that he is sort of getting full of himself, because the voices, or whatever you want to call them, are telling him that he's, they're basically afraid of him because he is godlike powerful. And of course, the betrayal that Sid feels is the fact that she says, "You drugged me," and that makes it sound a little worse than it really was. Again, like I said, it's kind of gross and skeevy the way it happened, but this is not really like a Bill Cosby situation. The situation here is that he was trying to keep her from being influenced by Farouk and or future Sid. And again, I don't see if that is quite as bad as they're making it out to be, but it is kind of skeevy, like I said, because apparently he takes advantage of her, so to speak, because she is now not, she's not completely in charge of her faculties, I suppose. You could put it that way. But was it done for a good purpose or not is what I'm trying to get to. The Shadow King did put this poison in her ear. And by making her forget that, is that really manipulating her mentally? Or is that just stripping back a couple weeks ago? I think that's the way David saw it anyway. But again, a very complex issue, and I appreciated that from Legion. That is something that they used to be pretty good at. And let me know in the comments below what you think exactly. To what extent was David turning evil? Is he evil? He kept saying, "I'm a good person." It's very sad because I come down on the side where I think he is a good person. I think that the, the adversity that he's been forced to come up against is probably what would turn many a fictional hero, as insane as he is supposedly in this show. But, we treat our heroes as they're completely without, any mental distress when they come into contact with all kinds of forms of evil and corruption and stuff. They stay, starchy clean. In this case, it's, he's already suffered greatly from Farouk. And Farouk even says at some point in the episode, Sid's going to hate you the way you hate me. He says it, I'm not saying verbatim, but this is basically what he said. Because you can't get her to love you the way I couldn't get you to love me. And it's very strange because it suggests that maybe Farouk, had feelings for David as a kid. I don't know what kind of feelings. I don't think they were inappropriate feelings, but for some reason there is some kind of connection between them. And, it's going to be up to him to, one has to fall, one or the other. I don't think both could survive. So that is the way they cliffhanger it. He escapes with Lenny, and Clark and Sid are there kind of befuddled as to what to do. Again, I thought this was a really great episode. I don't know what I would give this. It's the episode of the week. There were so few really good Legion episodes this season. I'm going to give this a 5. I'll give it a full 5. I'll say that this was engaging from beginning to end, made you think. There was a lot of great visuals. This is Legion at its best. And this is why I came back to it time and again, was to see if it could get this good again. And it's kind of too little too late because the season's over now. But yeah, they got me for season 3 because I said I've been pretty vocal in my criticisms about this season, saying it's really not that engaging, not very entertaining. But after last year's Hook, which was just basically David shrinking and getting taken off in a little airplane, and then when he came back, there was no real interesting rectification to that storyline or resolution to that storyline. So yeah, they got me back for season 3. It's already been greenlit season 3, so I'm gonna check it out. We'll see how it goes from there next season. Hopefully they take it back a little bit. They step back and see what was really cool about this show, and maybe we can get some Patrick Stewart love. Can we get a little Patrick Stewart action in here next season? I would love to see it. I know everybody else would, and apparently Patrick Stewart would. I think he even has gone on record saying he would come on the show if asked. So, 5 stars out of 5 for Legion. Okay, so that wraps up another show. That wraps up the Legion season. Next week, we're going to wrap up Supergirl. And yeah, let's see. We're going to try to do another video. A Torch News Roundup, usually located on a Wednesday afternoon. So we will probably be back for that. And don't forget to check out the link in the description below for The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon, Private Eye, as you see right here on your screen. That is the comic book I illustrate and write and color and letter and everything else that has to do with it, apart from some editing on the cover. But I pretty much run the whole show. So you can check out a free preview on my website. It'll say free preview up there. Just go up there and check it out. You can check out my Twitter page. The link is also in the description below. And thank you for joining us. God love you for being here. You are always appreciated. Let me know what you think about the show in the comments below. Do you want to see me keep doing live shows about This Week in Comic Book Television? Let me know what you thought about Legion. I'm really excited about that episode. I thought it was pretty cool, so I'd like to hear what others thought of it. I would like to hear what you think about Cloak and Dagger. Am I being a little too hard on it? Is it a little bit dour, a little dire in its execution for your taste as well? And Supergirl ramping up for a pretty exciting conclusion, I think. So what do you think? Do you think Mon-El has overstayed his welcome? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And until next we meet, this is Johnny Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.